Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Library Talk and everything else. Another episode on Halloween today. So happy Halloween to every single body every single person that's listening. We really appreciate you being here today. So it's the last day of October 2024. We're going to move on to November, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and what November and the rest of the year brings. But thank you so very much. Again, you're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley Student Station. Join us right after the music break. We're going to talk about Halloween. Everything Halloween today. So please join us back after the music break. Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you so much for joining us for Library Talk and everything else. I'm your host, DJ JC, and I really appreciate us being able to spend our morning with you. So, heard a little bit of some Halloween songs, including, which I felt was appropriate, Michael Jackson to get us going today. So, if you're joining us for the first time, thank you so very much for being here. If you are a longtime listener and supporter of the show, we truly, truly appreciate your support from the very beginning. With that said, I am really excited, so I want to mention a couple of things. Some of the shows have already started being posted on our Vaquero Radio YouTube channel, so go back and listen to some of those, and we want all of those to be uploaded eventually, but not only our show here at Library Talk and everything else, but all the other shows that Vaquero Radio produces. You have some wonderful, wonderful shows, so listen to all of them, and please support Vaquero Radio. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Student Media for helping me every week setting things up and getting going, and it is a wonderful organization to be a part of. So if you're interested in radio or you want to do something that you're interested in, contact them, and there's topics for everybody. So if you're interested, contact Vaquero Radio. So today we're going to be talking about Halloween, and this is going to be a show all about Halloween. I did a lot of research, so if you hear a lot of rustling of papers, it's because I have a lot of quotes that I want to read to you and just different things. We're going to have a conversation about Halloween. I want you to think, as you're going through the show, about your most memorable Halloween moment. What is it that you can go back to? What is it that you think about when you think about Halloween? And if you do not celebrate Halloween, again, thank you so much for still tuning in, and we really appreciate you being here as well. So, if you are a longtime listener of the show, you know that we start with the research question, and that's what we use as a guide. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a show about research. We advocate for research. We look at research, and so every week we have a question, and that's what we use to kind of navigate our conversation. So, today's question is, how do contemporary Halloween traditions reflect societal beliefs about the supernatural, and in what ways do these practices influence perceptions of fear? So, I've broken down a lot of different quotes. I'm going to share the resources that I get this information from. So, the very first thing is from history.com, which is a history channel. So, what is Halloween? Why do we celebrate it? Why is it so popular? Why is it something that we continue after so many years doing and encouraging our children to go out there and wear costumes? And so let me read something to you from the History Channel's website. Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. And this year it will occur on Thursday, October 31st, 2024, will be on a Thursday. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. Soon, All Saints' Day were incorporated, and then incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. The evening before, known as All Hallows' Eve, and later Halloween. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns, festive gatherings, donning costumes, and eating treats. So, it is centuries old, and we are still celebrating it. We are still out there. We're still trick-or-treating. It is a day sometimes of mischief. It is a day where we kind of let loose. And we're going to talk about that because as I was putting together this episode, I started going through the internet and started doing some research on the library. And I'll talk about some of the library's resources that I used to compile some of this information, some of these quotes, some of this data. And I went into the Internet Movie Database because we're going to talk about scary movies. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts, the pros and cons of what people think Halloween is about. So we're in for a really great conversation, and I really wanted to do this topic, and it just fell on the day, so it just kind of worked itself out. So if we're looking at again the societal beliefs about the supernatural and in what ways do these practices influence perceptions of fear, let's look at the contemporary tradition. The practices that we have in place right now, the trick or treating, the haunted attractions, the different things such as corn mazes, such as haunted houses. This year, I had an opportunity, and I've been doing this for a while, but I have an opportunity to spend some time in San Antonio at Fiesta, Texas, where they have their Fright Fest. And it was so packed, so many people attending these things, and it is so much fun. People dressed up, people going through these haunted houses. These haunted houses have themes, and you also have these local haunted houses. You also have here in the valley, we have Corn Maze up in Donna that has been really popular for a couple of years now, and it's pretty freaky. I went there a couple of years back. It is really cool. It is awesome, and different haunted houses that get promoted. I was in San Antonio, like I said, and you have the 13th floors of Halloween downtown. And so these are huge, huge productions that these companies make in order to, again, attract us. But why are we attracted to fear? Why is it that we like to be scared? Why is it that we enjoy the fright? And so we're going to take a look at some of that. We'll take a look at some quotes from scientists, from researchers about why we like to be scared. Why is it that we like to be fearful? And I think, this is just my opinion, I think we enjoy that part of being scared because I think it's a controlled fear, because we know we're not really, really in danger. So I think that's just my take on it. But we'll take a look at what some of the researchers and some of the social scientists say about why we get scared. But, you think about these haunted houses, and this is big money as well. You think about these candy companies. They are making really, really great money on us buying and stocking up on candies. I went to HEB, and the bags of candy are on the shelf, and it seems like more and more are on the shelf because they're so expensive. These bags of candy are so expensive. And you're going to look a little bit later when we look at the pros and cons of Halloween as to why that might be the reason. So, you think about the scary movies that are going on at this time. Books that are really, really popular at this time are a lot of horror. We start going from September to October, and you start feeling the weather change. You start feeling the just everything, the attitude. You have all these pumpkin related things coming out, lattes and coffees and so forth. And it is, again, October 31st, 2024, and we are 305 days into the year already, and there are 61 days to the end of 2024. So we are really close to the end. And Halloween to me has always been sort of like the last remnants, I guess, of the season in a sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the way I look at Halloween is it, because then we get November, and November has Thanksgiving, and then we have Christmas, and then New Year's, and then we're in the following year. And I always feel bad for Thanksgiving because it seems like we just kind of pass it over, and we just kind of look and say, oh, okay, it's Thanksgiving Day, and then we focus so much on Christmas. So I've always looked at October 31st, Halloween, as just the last of, a really great time. And this is my favorite time of the year. I've always enjoyed from September to December. This is what I really, really like as far as seasons, as far as time of year, as time of just school and everything. So it's a wonderful opportunity, to kind of enjoy what's to come. And again, 61 more days, and then it's over, and then 2025 is upon us. So I want to look at also the supernatural themes in popular culture, in our movies, in our television shows. And I talked a little bit about books. I got into the Stephen King kick a couple of years back, where everything I was reading was Stephen King. I was just eating everything up that this guy was publishing and had published. And I really enjoyed a lot of his works. and have enjoyed some of his new material, but some of his classic Stephen King material is really great. So as you're sitting there, if you've never read Stephen King and you want to read something scary, go back to some of the classic Stephen King novels that he published 80s, 90s. Not to say that the new material is not good, but if you're looking for something really, really classic in horror, go back. And there are so many other writers that are doing the same thing. Dean Koontz and some of the other writers that have, caught on to this supernatural kind of horror genre, and there's some wonderful authors out there. So if you have any ideas, any recommendations, any ideas for the show, you can reach us at libraryguy03@gmail.com. I'd be glad to read your email and see what any show ideas that you might have, any recommendations. And again, you might be sitting there thinking, I have read several Stephen King books and I want to go back to that. I have watched several movies, but I maybe haven't seen the classics. And we're going to talk about that because I brought the top 10 horror movies according to the Internet Database. And some of these I've seen, some of these I haven't, some of these I have kind of some stories to tell about them. And so we'll share that in a bit. But as you're sitting there and you're thinking back to your favorite Halloween memory or movie, what are they? What is it that kind of draws us to Halloween? Movies like The Conjuring, movies like Saw and The Exorcist, those, they put us in this mood, they put us in this attitude. And if you're at a movie theater, if you've recently gone to a movie theater and watched a scary movie, that is one of the better experiences. I know you can watch it at home, and kind of pause it and go back and rewind maybe a scene that you missed. But there is something collectively about going to the movies and watching it as a group that just makes the experience a lot better. And hopefully it's a wonderful group that you have as an audience, because I've been to several movies that it just didn't work out, and I'll talk about that as well as I discuss The Exorcist. But Halloween, it has been a part of our culture for many years. It is part of what we know. It is part of what we do. And some people really look forward to it. Some people start putting up their Halloween decorations in September. Going back to that trip to San Antonio, these are big productions that these companies are putting out there. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but there is a big investment into these companies trying and attempting to get your attention. This year at Fiesta Texas, one of the main haunted houses was the one with a Conjuring theme. And it makes sense. Warner Brothers owns Fiesta Texas, and Warner Brothers also owns the intellectual property for The Conjuring. So it's just a wonderful marriage there. And they put it together, a wonderful production. And, we walked out of there saying, wow, that is really incredible. The inventiveness and them using these IPs, these intellectual properties, to really take advantage of the fear factor. So as we move forward to the top 10 horror movies, according to the Internet Movie Database, some of you may have seen all of these. Some of you may be horror movie fanatics. I know I'm not, but I have seen some of these on the list. And yeah, so let's talk about some of these. So according to the Internet Movie Database, top of the list, top 10, number one is The Exorcist. So according to and they do use a ranking system. So it's not just one person. They do use a ranking system to figure out and to kind of the analytics behind what is the top movie. So it's not just somebody randomly putting out this because it's their favorite movie, but they do use a metric to determine these movies. So number one is The Exorcist. And I mentioned about going to the movies with a great audience. The Exorcist came out in 1973. And on the 30th anniversary, they brought it back to the movie theaters. And I happened to watch it in a movie theater in Matamoros, in Mexico. And it was in English, it was dubbed. But the audience was laughing. It was a nervous laughter, but it wasn't an audience that really took to the movie too well because they were laughing. There were a lot of young kids. And so I really enjoyed the movie. Will I watch it again at home by myself? Probably not, but it's a really great movie, production-wise, the script, the effects. I mean, for 1973, it was a really a powerful film. And I want to read something to you a little bit later about that movie. So we'll talk about that. But if you've seen it, great. If you haven't, and you really want something to scare you. But I don't know about today's audiences, though. Today's audiences are a little different. And today's horror movies are a little different. Today's horror movies, I feel, are a lot more about, the slasher and the just overdoing the killing aspect of it. A movie like The Exorcist makes you think a little bit. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Number 2, according to the Internet Movie Database, is The Shining. I've seen parts of that movie. I haven't seen the entire movie, but the book is really good. Again, by Stephen King, so I highly recommend the book. The movie, again, I've only seen parts of it. It is a little out there, but that's number 2, according to the Internet Movie Database. And that came out in 1980. The next movie on their list is 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Recently, I did introduce the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to my young daughter. She watched it. She says she enjoyed it. It is a little gruesome. It is a little tough, to watch. And again, 1974. The effects are really good. The script, yeah, you know what, okay, maybe needs some work, but it is a really great movie. But one of the things I want to mention about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that a lot of people believe that this movie is based on a true story. And, I kind of, every episode I seem like I go into this, what I call a rabbit hole. And so I went into this deep dive about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And one of the things that I discovered is that it is not a true story, but it is loosely based on a real person named Ed Gein. And if you've heard of Ed Gein, he has been in the cultural zeitgeist, I guess, for around this time, around this season. And he is also known as the Butcher of Plainfield. And he's only recorded as murdering 2 people, 2 women in Plainsfield, Wisconsin. But he gained notoriety in 1957 when authorities discovered that he was exhuming corpses from local graveyards and making jewelry and clothes out of the skin of those he had dug up. I know, I'm sorry, this is really morbid, but again, I did tell you this is going to be a Halloween episode. He is the inspiration for several characters, fictional characters, that have graced our screens in recent years. He's the inspiration for the movie Psycho. He is said to be the inspiration for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, House of a Thousand Corpses, Ed Gein the Musical. So he is, if you're interested in learning more about him, you can use our resources at the library to do biographical searches, or just type him into the internet and you'll find out you look at him and he's this elderly man, but when you start delving into what he was actually doing, what he was actually partaking in, it's a little interesting. And that's why you can see why Hollywood kind of took that story and kind of created movies around it. So Ed Gein. Okay, so continuing is 1960s Psycho. I've never seen that movie. I know, again, I just spoke about it. Anthony Perkins does a wonderful performance in that, but I've never seen that one. I know they redid it a couple of years, but I hear that the original one, the classic from 1960, is still the better one. 1979's Alien. I've never seen that movie either. I've seen parts of it. I know what the story's about, but I've never seen that. 1982's The Thing. I haven't seen that one either. 1968's Rosemary's Baby. 1978 Halloween. And this one I had never heard of. It's 1979's Suspira. I had never heard of this movie. It's about an American ballet student who transfers to a prestigious dance academy in Germany, only to discover that it is controlled by a coven of witches. I have never even heard of that movie. Supposedly they were going to do a remake in 2013, and if one exists and you've seen it, maybe it's a great movie, maybe it's a scary movie, but according to Internet Movie Database, it is part of their top 10 list, 1979's Suspira. And finally, Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead. So if you've seen some of those, let me know what you think. Again, libraryguy@utrgv.edu. And with all this talk about the exorcism being number one and all this, my own experiences with that movie, I have watched a little bit of it. at home because it is on Max. And again, the experience is not the same as watching it in a theater, and maybe it is a little creepy when you're trying to watch it at home at night. So, with all that talk, let us go to the theme song of The Exorcist. So, join us back after the break as we're going to continue this conversation. Again, you are listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us again for Library Talk and everything else. So, we just hear a couple of bars from that song, the theme from Exorcist, and we know exactly what it is. And there are some other themes, like the ones for Halloween, and some of those other movies that right away we know what movie that is by just hearing a couple of seconds of it. So we wanted to cleanse our palate a little bit after that song. So that's why I played Monster Mash, because sitting here in the studio by myself, I was like, you know what, let's mix it up a little bit. So why do we enjoy these films? We went over a top 10 list according to Internet Movie Database, and I really believe that we watch these movies and we enjoy these movies because it allows us to suspend our disbelief. And we want to be scared, I guess, in a sense, but we know it's a controlled fright, it's a controlled scare, and we're not, and I mentioned it earlier, we're not really in any danger while watching these movies. It's just, I think we just like being a little frightened. So I found an article from a John Hopkins Carey School of Business article entitled, "Why Do We Enjoy Horror? Science Explains." So I'm going to read this quote to you, and this is from an article itself. And so let me read this to you. It says, according to researchers, stimulation is one of the driving forces behind the consumption of horror. Exposure to terrifying acts like stories of demonic possessions or alien infestation can be stimulating both mentally and physically. These experiences can give rise to both negative feelings such as fear or anxiety and positive feelings such as excitement or joy. We tend to feel the most positive emotions when something makes us feel the most negative ones. And so going back to the movie The Exorcist, if you've never seen it, and I will go over it because I keep talking about it, and probably some of you younger listeners are thinking, I don't know what movie this guy's talking about. But if you've never seen it, it came out in 1973, and it's about a single mother's struggle to save her daughter from a mysterious ailment later revealed to be demonic possession. She enlists help from two Roman Catholic priests who attempt to perform an exorcism. And this is a really lengthy quote, and I really tried to shorten it, but I wanted to read everything to you because this is another article from a journal entitled History of Human Sciences. And the title of this article is Somewhere Between Science and Superstition, Religious Outrage, Horrific Science, and The Exorcist. And the reason I brought this up was because I had watched a documentary on the movie The Exorcist, and there was a lot of backlash from different religious organizations, particularly the Catholic Church. And so I wanted to delve a little further into that. So I went and did some research utilizing the library's resources, plug. So this is an article that I found, and it is a little lengthy, but I want to read it to you because I thought it was so interesting, and it kind of talks about the times, it talks about what was happening and the Catholic Church's reaction and other religious organizations and groups. So it is a little lengthy, so just kind of bear with me here. But the article, again, is from, this quote, is from the article, Somewhere Between Science and Superstition, Religious Outrage, Horrific Science, and The Exorcist. Science and religions pervade the 1973 horror The Exorcist, and the film exists, as the movie's tagline suggests, somewhere between science and superstition. Archival materials show the depth of research conducted by writer and director William Friedrich in his commitment to presenting and exploring emerging scientific procedures and accurate Catholic rituals. Where clinical and barbaric science fails, faith and ritual save the possessed child Regan from her demons. The Exorcist created a media frenzy in 1973 with increased reports in the popular press of demonic possessions, audience members convulsing and vomiting at screenings, and apparent religious and specifically Catholic moral outrage. However, the official Catholic response to The Exorcist was not as reactionary as the press claimed. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' Office of Film and Broadcasting, the OSCCB-OFB, again, that's the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops' Office on Film and Broadcasting, officially and publicly condemned the film as being unsuitable for a wide audience, but reviews produced for the office by priests and lay Catholics and correspondence between the Vatican and the USCCB-OFB, bit of a mouthful, show that the church, at least notionally, interpreted it as a positive response to the power of faith. Warner Brothers Studios, however, were keen to promote stories of religious outreach to boost sales and news coverage, a marketing strategy that actively contradicted the director's respectful and collaborative approach to working with both religious communities and medical professionals. Reports of Catholic outrage were a means of promoting The Exorcist rather than an accurate reflection of the Catholic Church's response to the film and its scientific and religious content. So if you go back into YouTube and you look at archival footage and what we call primary source materials, you're going to see that whether it was a marketing ploy by Warner Brothers or what it would actually existed, you're going to see people at movie theaters, not able to sit through the whole movie. They had nurses at movie theaters. They had, ushers getting ready to escort people out. So go back and look at some of that archival footage, and it is really interesting. And some people, the videos that I found, people are walk out of the movie and say that they're going straight to church. So it is a very, again, whether it was marketing or whether it was really, really something that people were feeling, whatever it is, it has been a successful movie and continues to be on many lists of top 10 horror movies. Again, I talked about this earlier about maybe today's audiences being a little different than in the past, and their perception of horror movies may be more gruesome, maybe more outlandish. But for me, and for many others that have watched The Exorcist, that I've spoken to put this radio episode together, were telling me that, yeah, it really, really scared them at the time of when they saw it, and they won't watch it again. Even at home. But we continue with the societal beliefs that we talked about as part of our research question, and we want to examine how Halloween reflects current beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is a very, very popular push towards celebrating Dia de los Muertos. And that's gained a lot of popularity in the United States. Obviously, it has been really popular in Mexico and other parts, but it's a Mexican holiday where families welcome back the souls of those that were deceased, their relatives, for a brief reunion. And this may include food, drink, celebration. And again, I went to a deeper dive into exactly where it originated and where it comes from, as far as, when it began, when it kind of became a thing. But recently, if you go to H-E-B or to Walmart, you see a lot, and different stores, you see a lot of themed products surrounding the Dia de los Muertos. There's a Barbie. There are, all sorts of toys that now celebrate this. Movies, the movie Coco by Disney. And so it is becoming part of our culture here in the United States as well. But it is a blend of Mesoamerican ritual, European religion, and Spanish culture. Its holiday is celebrated between November 1st and November 2nd, while October 31st is Halloween. November 1st and 2nd are All Souls Day or the Day of the Dead. According to tradition, the gates of heaven are opened at midnight on the 31st, and the spirits of children can rejoin their families for 24 hours. Spirits of adults can do the same on the 2nd of November. So we look at folklore, we look at the mythology, we look at all these different things as part of what we believe, part of what we practice, part of what we live by. And you see a lot of places that are putting altares or ofrendas, and so it's becoming part of more and more our culture and our society here in the United States as well. And so I have a tendency of going into YouTube a lot, and I love following different people on different channels, things that interest me. But recently, on a Sunday evening, I was kind of going through some different things, and this one just popped up. And it's this YouTuber who goes to different locations, and he goes to different places where events have happened. He goes to cemeteries. He goes to different locations. And I initially thought it was only Mexico, but as I kind of watched more and more of his shows, he goes into South America, and he came into the United States, and he records and does little vignettes, I guess, on places where things have happened. Cemeteries, as I mentioned. And one of the things that he kind of got me going on, and I mentioned that it was a Sunday night, and I'll tell you why right now. But one of the things that he was covering in one of the first episodes was about La Llorona. And I know La Llorona, the weeping woman, but I didn't know this existed. So I want to read something to you. So La Llorona is an ancient story embedded in the folklore of Latin America. There are many variations on the theme, but basically it's a tragic tale of a ghost of a grieving woman roaming rivers, lakes, seeking her dead children for an eternity. There have been movies, there's been television shows, there's costumes. But one of the things that I did not know until I was watching this guy's YouTube channel was that there is a tomb dedicated to La Llorona, and it is in the middle of nowhere, according to his video. So I had to go and search where he was talking about, and it is in Siete Reales, Guanajuato, Mexico. And there is a tomb dedicated to La Llorona, and it is in the middle of a cactus field. It stands alone in the middle of a cactus field. And the interesting thing about it is that this tomb has actually been blessed and exorcised by priests from the Vatican. So it is recognized, and it has been documented that these priests were dispatched from the Vatican to go to this middle of nowhere tomb and have blessed it and exercised it. And the reason I was telling you earlier that I was having some difficulty sleeping was because I watched this video, and he is, he's there and he's kind of documenting it, but he's hearing sounds. He's hearing what sounds like a woman weeping. And then so I went into a deeper dive and I watched somebody else's video. And this video was a group of paranormal hunters that did it at night, that went in the middle of the night to go investigate this tomb, and they too start hearing noises and what sound like children, what sounds like somebody crying. So it's a very fascinating video and set of videos. And if you go online and you type in tomb of La Llorona, it'll take you to a map of where it's at, a Google map, and so some images. So it's a really interesting story, and I didn't know this. I didn't know that according to the story, it originated in Guanajuato. And so, we discovered things that as part of our research, we learned from. And so I thought that was a very interesting story. And one of the things that happens is that these videos keep getting produced through YouTube, and we keep eating them up, we keep watching them. And I was talking about the whole Sunday thing, and I never really got to the point of that, but I was talking about that because that Sunday night I had a really difficult time going to sleep because I kept hearing those voices. I kept hearing the little children, according to this video, and I just couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, but then eventually sleep came, and I woke up the next day, and I had to go and see exactly where the location of this was. So that's when I did the Google search to see where it's located. And again, it is located in Siete Reales, Guanajuato, Mexico. So our perceptions of fear, we talked about that a little bit. The traditions that create and manipulate fear, the movies now are all about loud noises, are all about the scares and all of that. And, one of the things that people really enjoy about The Exorcist is that psychological fear more than these jump scares and all these different things. But again, to each his own. If you are more of a horror fan and enjoys movies of today, great. I have seen a couple of them. Some are great, some are not so good. But it's that psychological effect that it has on us, these supernatural themes, such as the Ouija board. If I talked to several people and I asked them, have you ever done the Ouija board? Some people said they had, some people said they haven't, some people said they stay away from it because it's a portal. So it just, it depends. But, these effects that the fear has on us and how we react to that. And so I started with talking about how big of an industry it is. And it really is. It is something that starts getting promoted early, and we start buying our costumes early. These spirit stores come into our communities, and they're just here for the Halloween season. Then they pack up and leave, and so it's a big money, big industry. So this was an episode where I really wanted to find out what people think about the supernatural. And so I'm going to read some of these things to you, some of these quotes, because I went out and asked, and again, I talk about hitting the pavement. So I really do go around with a clipboard and ask people what they think about some of these things. So here are some of the quotes that I got. A question I asked was, do you believe in the supernatural? If yes, why? If no, why not? So here are some of their quotes. Yes, it would be egotistical for us to think that once we die, nothing happens to our spirit. Another person said, yes, because I've experienced things that I cannot explain. Another person said, no, I have never seen anything out of the ordinary. Again, do you believe in the supernatural? Yes. Why? No, why not? Yes, because of the preponderance of overwhelming evidence, both proven and unproven. Another person said, yes, God created good and evil. We have been asked to believe in the God of heaven and hell, but we have not seen God or heaven and hell. Our faith will be determined based on our belief and our good deeds. Another person said, yes, but have never experienced anything. And then another person I asked said, yes, although I have never experienced anything, I know several people that have. So it's an interesting take. You know, some people believe, some people don't. I worked with several people back in the day when we were UTBTSC, and the hauntings that supposed happened here on the grounds of the Brownsville campus, because this used to be a military fort. So the ghost stories abound. And I worked with several people that said, no, I've worked in the library for hours on end. I've never seen anything. And other people said, yes, they had experienced, something. So it just depends. So I did a little bit of research on another database called iPoll, and I wanted to find out what people do and how they celebrate their Halloween. But we're running out of time on this one, so I may not get to that particular aspect of the show. And the time just goes by so fast when we're together here. But I did search something else. So I might not have time to go into that breakdown, but I do want to talk about this one. So these are kind of statistics as to what we do during Halloween. And so according to the statistics, 39% of people decorate their house. They were surveyed, and so 39% of people decorate their houses, 37% carve pumpkins, 36% watch scary movies, 32% dress up in a costume, 26% go to pumpkin patches, 25% go trick-or-treating, 21% go to Halloween parties, 17% go to haunted houses or corn mazes, 7% go host a Halloween party, 6 they do other things, and 29 said none of the above, and 1 person skipped the survey. So, however you celebrate and whatever you do to today, please stay safe and please be careful. We're going to end the show. It's not just yet, but because I have a couple of announcements that I want to discuss, but let's enjoy one of the classic songs that I really like from the 1984 Ghostbusters movie. The song is Ghostbusters. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley Student Station. Come back because I have a couple of announcements that I want to mention. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in to Library Talk and everything else. Just a couple of announcements. Early voting continues through to tomorrow. Till tomorrow, and then the general election is on the 5th of November. If you haven't had a chance to go out there and vote, please. Again, I talked about this last week. Your voice, your vote, your vote, your voice. So make sure you go out there. And the last announcement that I want to talk about is that both the campus in Edinburgh and the campus in Brownsville are going to be hosting a costume contest, and that is right now at from 12 to 1:30, and it is on the Edinburgh campus at the STUN Theater, and in Brownsville it's at the BSTUN La Sala, so at the theater and the Sala. So I'll be judging out there, so hopefully you participate and hopefully you have fun with it. So enjoy today, enjoy this weekend. We'll be back next weekend and back next week, excuse me. Oh my God, I'm so excited about Halloween. We will be back next week, and it'll already be November. So hopefully everybody stays safe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station.